Hey everyone, Snowflarky Zemos here today with my Barrel Dragon Dark Machine Trap Control deck profile. With this format bringing skill drain back to 3, I think a lot of these trap control style decks are a little more powerful than they were before. Not great, but certainly playable. And we've seen some folks online talking about Blue Eyes trap control and things like that. So I'm taking a lot of those core principles from deck profiles like that and just applying them to other kind of resource recycling loops I can come up with. And Dark Machine is one that has that ability to kind of make that loop, and is a lot of cards that are possible, so it's pretty cool. Trap Control, for those who don't know, really just means that you're kind of playing like a small monster core and just some disruptive trap cards that are your main powerhouses of winning the game, but it's not necessarily as floodgatey as just playing like a stun deck. Just in general, more reactive. It's pretty cool. If you like trap cards like me, it's a fun play style to look into. So with that said, let's get into the card by card. First, starting off with our monsters, I am playing 3 copies of Desperado Barrel Dragon. This is our big boss monster of the deck. Desperado Barrel Dragon is a pretty sweet card. If a face-up Dark Machine type monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, and do note that it is destroyed by any card effect, which is important for how this deck plays because it means we can trigger it ourselves, you can special summon this card from your hand. So that's cool. It's a 2,800 attack monster with 8 stars, so that's a pretty big body for a free summon. Once per turn during the battle phase, quick effect, you can toss a coin 3 times to destroy face-up monsters on the field up to the number of heads. And if you flip 3 heads, you can draw a card, so that's pretty cool. So what's great about Desperado Barrel Dragon is it makes a great boss for this deck because it's easy to summon from the hand just when any of your other monsters get destroyed. And of course, if you have skill drain on the field, then it's a 2800 body, which, with effects negated, makes Desperado usually one of the best brawlers that could be on the field. And of course, if you don't, you still have a pretty cool quick pop effect during the battle phase, which is awesome. And then Desperado Barrel Dragon has one less effect, that if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add a level 7 or lower monster that has a coin tossing effect in its text. So definitely have a target for that. So yeah, this is the big boss. This is the card that we want to get looping. We want to be able to summon it, and then when it's destroyed, we want to be able to grab another monster and add this one back to our hand with our Makina defense perimeter. Next up for the monsters, I'm playing 2 copies of Twin Barrel Dragon. This is our target that we're going to be searching off of Desperado Barrel Dragon search effect. It's a 4-star Dark Machine type monster. When this card is summoned, select a card your opponent controls, toss a coin twice. If both results are heads, destroy it. So not the, not a great effect that you'll get off very often. Only works about 25% of the time in destroying a card, but that's okay. Mostly in here just to get us a little, float some card advantage when Desperado needs to search. And it is a Dark Machine, which serves our purpose well. It does mean that when it's destroyed, we can summon Desperado because of it, and for that reason, we'll play 2. Next up, I'm playing 2 copies of Mechanical Chaser. Now, all the little monsters I'm playing in this deck are at 2. I wouldn't say that's the final ratio. I'm just playing each of them at 2 because I'm trying to decide which one of them is the best. I think Mechanical Chaser here is the one I might bump up to 3 for maybe to bump down a copy of Twin Barrel or my next card. But Mechanical Chaser is just an 1850 machine beater. It's the highest attack of a Dark Machine beater that we can summon in this deck, and we don't care that it doesn't have an effect because we're really trying to win off of the back of skill drain in this deck. So Mechanical Chaser at 2 might be worth bumping up to 3. And last for our monsters, I am playing 2 copies of Fusilier Dragon, the dual mode beast. Now this could be the best if you have skill drain up, but since we don't always get skill drain up, I am only playing 2 copies of this card. This is a 7-star Dark Machine that, of course, this card can be normal summoned or set without tribute. If it does, its original attack and defense becomes half. Now what's cool about this card though is that if you have skill drain on the field, which we can play at 3 in this format, this is just a normal summonable 2800 attack monster, which is a lot of attack. We want to do damage quickly. We want to contest monsters, especially because when monster effects aren't relevant, stats are what matters most. So just playing 2 copies of Fusilier. and those little monster ratios can be rearranged, and probably will be as I play this deck more. But that is it for our monsters. Next, we're going into our spell cards. I am playing one copy of Fury of Carrion. This deck is also kind of carried on the back of the power of Torrential Tribute, a really great trap card that can disrupt an opponent's play. And this spell card is just a searcher for Torrential Tribute. You add Torrential Tribute from your deck to your hand. It has a second effect that would protect your water monsters from being destroyed by battle or card effect. But since we don't have any waters, not relevant here, just here to be a Torrential Tribute searcher, which honestly, still worth it. Next up, I'm playing 3 copies of Makina Defense Perimeter. 3 may be a little overkill because you only need one of this card live, but this is the card that allows us to kind of have our regenerating resource loop so we don't run out of monsters. And so I'm playing this card at 3 just because I want to see it. Makina Defense Perimeter has an effect while you control a face-up level 7 or higher machine-type monster. Your opponent's monsters cannot target level 6 or lower machine-type monsters you control for attacks, so that does come up. Desperado is level 7 or higher, of course. But what we really want is that if a face-up machine monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target a machine monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand. You can only use this effect once per turn. So this kind of allows everything to go off. Say we have this card on the field and we have our Twin Barrel Dragon. Twin Barrel Dragon will get destroyed by battle or card effect, including maybe our Torrential Tribute. Cool. We'll destroy our opponent's monsters. We'll destroy our Twin Barrel. Hey, we have Desperado in the hand. Cool. We'll special summon Desperado. And then Makina Defense Perimeter will allow us to take our Twin Barrel Dragon that we just destroyed and put it back in our hand, which is pretty cool. Then on a follow-up turn, if this card gets destroyed, it'll go to the grave, and we can add it back to our hand, and we have Twin Barrel Dragon back in our hand, ready to be summoned, ready to be destroyed, ready to get us Desperado Barrel Dragon back on the field. And that's basically kind of how the loop works, and that's what we want Makina Defense Perimeter for. Next up, I'm playing 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. This deck isn't a combo deck, doesn't make great use of its extra deck, so Pot of Extravagance is the way to go. Banishing 3 to 6 extra deck cards face down to draw 1 card for each, so we just turn 6 extra deck cards into a draw 2. Definitely worth it. Now we can't use any other draw effects, of course, which does come into play with Desperado sometimes, but still worth it. Next up, playing 3 pots of Duality for consistency boost. This gets us whatever floodgate we need, whatever monster we're missing, gets us Makina Defense Perimeter if we don't have it, and we're not necessarily always special summoning on our turn. Lots of turns where you won't be, so we don't mind that we don't have to special summon. So definitely, definitely a good choice. And lastly, since we are playing a low monster count, lots of trap cards, I am playing a copy of Card of Demise. This just draws us cards till we have 3 in our hand, and we have to discard everything at the end of the turn. We also can't special summon, like Pot of Duality. That's not a big deal. But, can get us a lot of trap cards, and the trap cards are how we're going to lock down our opponent and allow this kind of weaker resource engine to become a lot stronger and win the game. The only thing I will say is do be careful with Card of Demise in this deck, because for this particular version of this deck, it is fairly important that you be able to keep Desperados in your hand, so you don't necessarily want to discard them. But if you got extras, or if you don't have Desperado in your hand at the time, still worth running as a one-of. It just gets you so many cards that we can't pass it up. And that's it for the spells. Next up, going into our trap cards, we are playing 3 copies of the good old, my favorite, Skill Drain. These trap control decks that you might hear about, I think, are carried on the back of this card. Skill Drain, incredibly powerful trap card that pay 1,000 life points, and as long as this card remains face-up on the field, negate the effects of all face-up effect monsters on the field. So, pretty cool. When your opponent's monsters on the field can't use their effects, that makes them a lot less powerful, and makes ours, that just have naturally high attack stats, more powerful, which is pretty cool. So, Skill Drain, just a powerful card. If some decks don't have an out to it, or aren't prepared for it, or caught off guard by it, this card will win you many games. and that's what it's in here for, because we want to win games with this deck. So yeah, the fact that this deck is built around skill drain means that we're not punished by it. Our opponent will be punished by it, and that is enough to win us a game. Another really powerful card that could be game-winning on its own is 2 copies of Gos and Match. Gos and Match just makes it so that each player can only control 1 attribute at a time. Now, everything in here is dark and machine, so this could also be Rivalry of the Warlords, worth considering in your sideboard. And whatnot. So just very powerful card. If your opponent's playing a deck where they have to go into monsters of different attributes, especially becomes a lot more common with extra deck combo decks, this makes it harder to do, and so can be a very powerful way to limit your opponent's options. Next up, we are playing 3 Torrential Tribute. Torrential Tribute, I think, is a pretty amazing trap card. You can activate it when a monster is summoned. Destroy all monsters on the field. So what's pretty cool about this is Torrential is very disruptive to an opponent's play. You know, if they're trying to special summon out a lot of monsters, go into an extra deck monster. You know, if you know what you're up against, you can find good opportunities to Torrential Tribute your opponent's board and maybe stop them right in their tracks, which is pretty cool. And we don't mind doing it to our own monsters if we have Makina Defense Perimeter and a way to loop our resources, which is pretty nice. And that's kind of the ability to play this card is kind of what makes this playstyle work. So if you're not really punished by it, but can use it, it can be incredibly powerful. It's nice going first, it's nice going second. Just one thing to note is that you do have to be careful with this card and Skill Drain, because if you want a Torrential aboard, but a monster they just summoned is going to activate its effect, if you use Torrential, it'll be in the graveyard, so Skill Drain won't negate its effect. So just make sure that effect isn't going to make you lose before you decide to Torrential. Next up, I'm playing 3 copies of Solemn Judgment. A very powerful card in a decks like this, where we have cards that are stopping our opponent from playing and we don't want to lose to the out. Solemn Judgment is basically pay half your life points for a no button. Mostly be used to protect your floodgates like Skill Drain or Gos and Match from getting Harpy's Feather Dustered or Twin Twisters, whichever. This is the card that I honestly think makes having Skill Drain at 3 a lot more deadly. I think if Skill Drain decks didn't have Solemn Judgment to protect it, didn't have this many copies of Solemn Judgment to reliably protect Skill Drain, it would be kind of a lot worse than it is. Even then, Skill Drain's not really topping still, so we'll see how it goes, but yeah, I do think this card and Skill Drain together at 3 is kind of nuts. Next up, I'm playing 2 copies of Crackdown. This is a card I like in this deck. Now it is a continuous trap card, so it does clog back row spots, but what's pretty cool is if you know, your opponent has summoned some monsters or is at a crucial point where you can just steal a monster and end their turn. It's pretty cool. Crackdown just basically does that. You target a face-up monster your opponent controls, you take control of it, and then of course while you control the monster it cannot attack or activate its effects, and when that monster leaves the field, you know, this card is gone. So, you know, mostly we're just taking a monster to get it off of our opponent's field. We want to use it to be able to stop a combo line, or if your opponent is sitting on a monster that just somehow has a higher stat than your highest statted monster, 2800, we need to take that monster so that we can attack them directly again and attack over their monsters. So definitely a cool card. I enjoy it. There is maybe an argument that we could flex another floodgate in here. Anti-spell fragrance is really good. Something like summon limit. I don't know. There's other options, but Crackdown seems to be doing pretty solid. Next up, playing some more normal traps other than Torrential Tribute. I'm playing 2 copies of Lost Wind. Pretty cool card. When your opponent, you can target a face-up special summon monster on the field, negate its effects, and have its attack, which is pretty cool. And then, of course, if a monster is special summoned from your opponent's extra deck while this card is in the graveyard, you can set this card, which is pretty cool. Gives it some recyclability. Negating effects is always powerful, especially on a special summon monster. If it's something like, you know, Needle Fiber that you just need to negate its effect to stop the combo line. Very cool. And, you know, give it some recursion. Pretty cool. Worth running 2 copies of. You know, you can always switch it out in the matchup. Important in these kind of decks that you have a sideboard designed to cover the weaknesses that your deck already doesn't have. Next, I am playing 2 copies of Heavy Storm Duster. I just, in my dueling circle, I play against lots of spell and trap card decks, and Heavy Storm Duster is just a nice way to get card advantage off of it. I can target up to 2 spells and traps and destroy them. In exchange, I can't use my battle phase. Doesn't matter if I'm using this on an opponent's turn, and if they set other trap cards, if they, if I want to disrupt a field spell, whatever. Just a pretty good card in this deck, and can be pulled out with Trap Trick, which is nice. Next, I'm playing 2 copies of Waking the Dragon. This is another kind of just assurance for getting Lightning Stormed or Harpy's Feather Dustered. Waking the Dragon is just if this set card in its owner's control is removed from the field and is now either in the graveyard or banished, I can special summon a monster from my deck or extra deck. So, pretty cool. If my opponent Harpy's Feather Duster is my board and I don't have Solemn to protect my skill drain, then I get still a big benefit off of it. I can summon a game-winning monster, which is pretty cool. And, that is definitely notable. And for that reason, it's a good card to have. Definitely side it out if your opponent doesn't blind, destroy spell and trap cards, or have the Harpy's Feather Duster in their deck. But serves me well. And last, I'm playing 1 copy of Trap Trick. Trap Trick here is just fairly nice. Any of our normal traps, which includes Torrential, Lost Wind, Heavy Storm Duster, even Waking the Dragon, it can just tutor one of those out by banishing the other copy of it, so it's pretty nice just to get trap cards moving. Now do note, after Trap Trick resolves, you can only activate 1 more trap card afterwards, which is, something to keep in mind. You want to make sure you're not cutting yourself off of other cards you can be using. But what's nice about this, it can give me any of those cards I'm looking. It can get me a Torrential if I need it, a Lost Wind, a Heavy Storm Duster. What's really nice is that if you don't have Solemn or Waking the Dragon, and your opponent plays Harpy's Feather Duster, you could chain Trap Trick to banish and set a Waking the Dragon, which will then be set on the field before the Feather Duster resolves. That'll destroy Waking the Dragon and allow you to proc it, so that's always pretty cool. I dig that kind of play quite a bit. So just running it at 1, sometimes I could switch it out for, just another impactful card, but that is it for the main deck. Next, we are going into our extra deck. I'll just go through it really quickly because it's just a full Waking the Dragon package extra deck. Our first target, of course, being 3 copies of Last Warrior from Another Planet. This is a card, all these cards are just in here meant to be summoned off of Waking the Dragon. Last Warrior from Another Planet is a great target to go into if our Waking the Dragon is popped before our opponent has any monsters on the field. It simply says that neither player can summon monsters. So anybody can do is set, and if they don't have an out to this and they can't summon monsters, sometimes that just wins the game. Do have to note that when this card is special summon, you have to destroy all monsters you control on the field, so do keep that in mind. But if your opponent doesn't have any monsters, it's very powerful. Next up, I have 3 copies of Naturia Exaggeration. This is the big powerhouse for spell and trap card dependent matchups. If you have a card in your graveyard, basically what Exaggeration says is that you can negate as many spells and traps as you want. All you have to do is banish a card from your graveyard and send the top card of your deck to the graveyard. So once you have 1 card in the graveyard, you can kind of keep doing that because of how its effect works. And you can negate any spells, any traps, and it's not once per turn. It's definitely on both players' turn, and that just makes it incredibly powerful. You can just straight up win some matches. Next up, I'm playing 3 copies of the Raidraptor Ultimate Falcon. This is a 3,500 attack monster that is unaffected by card effects. That just gives it a very few ways to be outed. You either have to beat it by battle, or you have to kaiju over it. And if neither of those are an option for your opponent, then they will kind of just straight up lose to this card. So do keep that in mind. Next up, it's 3 copies of Yugioh Mathmech Final Sigma. This is just like Ultimate Falcon. It's a big monster that's unaffected by other card effects. As long as it's in the extra monster zone, that's fine. We're not going to use it for anything else. Maybe you would summon this only if you've banished all your Ultimate Falcon copies off of Extravagance. But it does have one thing over Ultimate Falcon, which is if this monster does battle damage to an opponent by battling a monster, that damage is doubled. So that's pretty cool. And it only has 500 less attack, so raidraptor Ultimate Falcon. So it might not be relevant, but you know, in here for an option. And then, of course, last for our extrajack monsters, I am playing 3 copies of Blue Eyes Alternative Ultimate Dragon, 4,500 attack monster that cannot be targeted or destroyed by your opponent's card effects. You know, not as good as being unaffected, of course, especially in this deck where we're playing Torrential Tribute, but 4,500, if, you know, sometimes not being able to be destroyed or targeted is enough for certain decks and certain matchups, and in exchange you get 1,000 more attack than raidraptor Ultimate Falcon, and also you get the ability that Alternative Ultimate Dragon has, which instead of attacking, you can just pop a card on the field. So, pretty cool option. If you're all in on the unaffected and don't think the targeted and destruction proof protection is enough for Awakening the Dragon payoff, you could play 3 copies of Armor, Blackwing Full Armor Master in its stead. And that is it for the extra deck. So that is it for my Dark Machine Barrel Dragon Trap Control deck. Pretty fun deck, just to loop those Dark Machines around and use the trap cards to, you know, hinder an opponent. If you like trap cards, this kind of play style is a lot of fun. I love trap cards, so it fits me well. Might get some rage inducing out of it if it's working well, so just keep that in mind as you play. But very cool way to play Barrel Dragon and whatnot. You can definitely make a stronger version of this deck using Makina core, where you just play Gear Frame and Unskplayer, and then you can have some copies of Desperado for when Unskplayer gets destroyed, and you can have Makina Citadel for when your Gear Frame gets destroyed. Be looping all those. Probably more effective when I pick up some Citadels. You'll probably see a version of that on this channel. And just keep in mind that this trap card lineup, of course, is fairly subjective to what kind of stuff I'm normally playing against. Keep in mind that you may need to adjust that trap lineup if you want to find success in a different dueling environment, just because you never know what you're going to be playing. Different trap cards stop different decks. Well, but Skill Drain is great. So definitely, yep, glad you came in and enjoyed it. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you're doing anything trap control style. Let me know what decks you've made to benefit off of Skill Drain. I gotta play it while we have it, because, you know, probably in a format or two it'll be back to 1 again. So anyway, thanks for checking out the video. I'll catch y'all in the next one.